I wish I could put smell-o-vision because, oh, there it goes again. Whew, new build time. Whew. Ouch. So pointy. I mean, it's pretty light, but anyways. You ever get to the end of your PC part picker list, you're all ready to buy a new PC and you got a really good deal on the graphics card and you got the next level up, but maybe you're spending a little bit more money on it than you thought you would, and you start getting to the end and you're like, well, I'm gonna need a few things. I need a, SSD, I need a case, I need a power supply, and you start thinking, maybe I could just skimp on the power supply a little bit. I mean, they're all good these days, right? It's 500 watts, should be fine. No, I did such a thing, sort of, for a more budget build that I would sell. I bought this, the CoolMax Technologies Incorporated 500 watt power supply off Newegg, and oh my god, is it ever a turd. So today on the program, I'm going to show you why you shouldn't be skimping on a power supply, that's for sure, and how I've come to discover I couldn't consciously put this in a build and sell it, because it's really that bad. So I don't know, we're going to fool around with it. Maybe even talk about why you should buy a good brand of power supply. So cue an intro and then an ad spot, and we'll be right back, and we're going to do things this CoolMax power supply should never be doing ever for fun. The Purebase 500DX by Be Quiet is optimized for high cooling performance and is designed for those who seek low noise and high airflow all in one budget-friendly chassis. The high airflow mesh intake allows the 3 included Pure Wings 2 140mm fans to silently cool your PC components, while the ARGB light strips at the front and interior of the case give your build that look you've been looking for. More information on the Purebase 500DX in the description, and thanks to Be Quiet for sponsoring this video. So we've got this thing all set up here, get her plugged in. Got the 2600K, and I put the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 on here. It actually goes to 5 gigahertz now. So the TDP on a 2600K is only 95 watts, but when you overclock it, it gets up near 250 from at least my watt meter here. So that's not going to saturate this thing, of course. And I was trying to think of some combination of hardware, but I'm actually legitimately worried about putting this on like my newer stuff. If I lost this motherboard or this CPU or this graphics card, it would be terrible, but it would not be terrible like losing my 10700K system or something like that, or a Ryzen system I've lying around. So this is the guinea pig for today, 2600K, 5 gigahertz, and my Fury X that has a Fury the Sapphire or XFX cooler on it, and that's 275 watt TDP. So we're definitely pushing the limits of things here, and so much so that I've got to do something really interesting here. We've got to use some Molex connections because, of course, this only has one 8-pin connector, this 500 watt power supply. So definitely not supposed to be doing what we're doing here today. And I know a lot of you are going to be like, don't do it, Timmy Joe. I could use that graphics card. I could use that motherboard. It's all for science, guys. So Molex to 6-pin 1, Molex to 6-pin 2. I think, yeah, those are 2 different wires. And then a SATA on the other rail. Here we go. There we go. And there we go. So we've got SATA to 6-pin that's plugged into a 6-pin to 8-pin adapter that also needs these 2 Molexes that go from that to a 6-pin that go into this. So we're just feeding the power off of the SATA rails and stuff like that on this power supply, which is going to be detrimental for it. I've already made sure it kind of works, so I don't anticipate too many problems, but we'll need a SATA connector for my SSD here, and then we'll get the thing fired on and we'll start playing around with it. So give me a second here, I'll get this all fired up and we'll see just how many watts we're pulling here. There we go. All right, power on. Wait. Power on. There we go. All right, so we got Unigine Heaven open here, And we'll do a low resolution, something it can handle, because I don't think it's gonna handle much once we get going here. 960 by 540, not full screen. Yeah, we'll see. Will it run that low of a resolution? If not, I'm probably gonna have to underclock the CPU from 5 gigahertz, because I already kind of figured out that this thing, just as it sits here, there we go. We're getting 450, and you hear it? Listen to this thing. Here, I'll turn the music off in Unigine. It sounds like a Vega graphics card with the coil whine. It's not this that's making the noise. It's this. This has the worst coil whine I've ever heard out of a power supply. It's actually crazy. So what are we running? 450 watts. 450 watts. 420. Okay, so dipping down a bit though. Let's step up the resolution here and see. Can we get this thing to blow up? I want to run it at like a pretty good. It's starting to smell bad. No word of a lie. There's an electronic smell coming out of the power supply. Ooh, coil whine it is, man. Jeebus. All right, I'll up the resolution here. Oh, no, she gaffed. It wasn't even anywhere near 500 watts. Oh, it's turning back on. Beep. Here, I'm gonna bring her down to 4.5 gigahertz. I think that might be enough. Oh my goodness, it stinks. All right, back into Windows at 4.8 gigahertz. Let's see, can we run, it might just be the graphics card and the way I have it set up here. It might not matter how much I downclock the CPU, but we'll see what happens. Loading it up again at that real low resolution. See the power coming out of the wall is now 405. Okay, so it's definitely a lot lower. But this thing's making all kinds of noise again. We're 430 watts. Okay. I'll see how long it'll actually last with this going on. 400 watts now. Not doing too bad. Can we up the resolution maybe? We'll just go straight to 1080p, see if it'll do it. Would you want that in your system? Oh. It shuts off at 1080p right away. 720p? How many watts? 489? 500 watts? What the hell? Yeah, it did not like that. We were over 500. I don't know what was going on there. We were over 500 right away. I will blow this power supply up. Even if it's smart enough to shut itself off when it's doing stupid stuff. Alright, we're at a much lower 75 watts. 72 watts idle on the desktop here. That's got to be better. I wish I could put smell-o-vision because, oh, there it goes again. It really stinks after a while. Something's getting too hot in there. Okay, so I've downloaded MSI Afterburner and I'm going to underclock the video card a little bit. This will give us some granular control to get the wattage we want to see on the screen here. We're at 444 watts there. Power supply is smelling worse than ever. Yep. This seems like a decent place to leave it. So I'm gonna let this happen. I'll leave the cameras rolling just in case it explodes. 1000 megahertz. Pretty good coil whine. 425 watts, 440. So she's staying under 450 watts. That should be good. 468 watts. Why does it go so high? 78. 78 on that heatsink. It keeps getting hotter. You hear that? You hear that? I blew it up and it can't even start anymore. Do you hear the crackling? Oh, it's powering the computer back on. It's crackling. It's probably so bad. It smells very bad in here. It's crackling. I didn't think that would be the result of this. Okay. Keep in mind, this power supply is brand new. All I ever did was use it one time to test the 10900K system, just to grab a quick power supply just to see if it would boot with like no video card or anything like that. And I turned it on, and once I got, you know, it just kept making this noise. Once I did get stuff working, it's like, this is the worst power supply I've ever heard of. Full bore. Is it dead? Shut it off for a second, see if it'll... Nope. The switch won't even go off anymore. Oh. The switch is like melting or something. The switch melted? Whew, it's dead. I'll let it sit there for a second, but I think it's actually dead. I killed it in like 45 minutes. It's dead. It's totally dead. All right, I want to take it apart. It's so loud. I guess I should make sure that the system's not dead. Power on. Now that's a power supply. Nice Corsair TX750 from a few years back. It's a little loud, but it certainly isn't screaming. And the computer turns on. Okay, let's just make sure it gets into Windows. Load back into 5 gigahertz here, and we'll see with this thing running full tilt what kind of watts we really get out of the system with a proper power supply. I just want to see, you know, what the difference is. Maybe this is more efficient and it will actually run at a lower wattage because it knows what it's doing. I don't know. We'll see. All right, so I set everything back up with this Corsair TX750 power supply. It's actually the power supply that originally ran this 2600 and motherboard and everything. I kind of bought the whole lot from the guy. Really good power supply, got a good deal on it. I think I paid $70 for it, so for 750 watts, like, yeah, and it's clean. But hooked up on this thing, I overclocked the CPU back to 5 gigahertz. I overclocked the graphics card 25 megahertz higher to 1075. That's 25 over its stock. But remember, we were running it at like 975 to get that other power supply to start exploding. And what's really interesting is look at the watts that it's running right now. 375 max, maybe? It's like 325 to 375. It never breaks 400, doing even more work than the system was with this crappy power supply. Oh my God, it's still actually a little bit warm. That's crazy. I'm gonna, you see it's all working. I'm glad that I didn't blow up, you know, this set of hardware. That would have been kind of gross, but you know, never hit, well, it hit 400 watts there, just me closing it. So, but it wasn't going anywhere near the like 450 watts, 475 watts this thing was reading with lower overclock settings than I just had on this thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this all cleared out. And then I just want to open up the power supply and see what it looks like inside this thing. You know, we'll just check it out. Alright, open it up. You know, it doesn't look too bad. Nope. there isn't a whole lot of evidence as to what went on in here. I do have a power supply tester, even though it's really just a measure of does it work or not. It just says fail. Yeah, it's done. That's awesome. So no evidence except for the clickety clacks when this thing tries to, so this actually did test the power supply. That's pretty sweet. I wasted 50 bucks on this. So what is the conclusion? What is the moral of the story? Always buy a name brand power supply. There are lower quality versions of 500, 600 watt power supplies from Thermaltake, Corsair, Cooler Master, stuff like that. It is always better to buy a name brand power supply. They're not gonna sell something like this because it will really sully their name. A lot of them have like at least some sort of 80 plus rating on them. You know, go with something like that, even if it's gonna cost you $20 more, $15 more, because Coolmax or anything like, I mean, I've seen these in pre-builts before, man. They fail. They just fail. Imagine a year's worth of dust in this and you're putting a pretty heavy load on it. Oh man, it's just gonna spell disaster. It was literally sparking itself. And I know I wasn't using it the way it was intended. You know, I had the Molex and the SATA branching off to power a graphics card. This thing had no business trying to power. But at the same time, imagine you used all of the Molex and the SATA on this for hard drives. And then you had like a, you know, just a lower end Core i5 or something, you know, you're using it as a NAS or something like that. There's all the connectors on there, you'd think you could use them, but no. I would wager you should really never use this power supply. Maybe you could get away with using it in some like office, just, you know, onboard graphics situation, and you'd get away with it and it would last forever. But any sort of graphics card, any sort of load on this thing, there's no way it's lasting a year, and it could take your components with it. So that's the moral of the story. Buy a name brand power supply like from our sponsor. Be quiet. They make good power supplies. I'm at Watch Timmy Joe Instagram and Twitter. I hope you'd enjoyed watching me blow up a power supply. Basically just set $60 on fire by the time taxes and shipping were involved. And yeah, I destroyed it. It's broken now. Have a good day, guys. See you later. Always buy name brand power supplies.